understand the importance of it as we do. But it was actually a moment in March 2016, and it was my mum and dad's anniversary, wedding anniversary, 40 years. My mum was super happy, my dad was the most miserable man alive that night. But we had a great day when we were talking about just our experiences in our lives, you know, those parties when you just reflect. And we started to reflect on two of my cousins called Philip and Jason. And Philip and Jason, when I was about 10, were 18, 19. And they were the cool kids, the popular kids, the footballers, the good-looking boys, the kind of boys that all the boys wanted to be and the boys that the girls wanted to be with, you know, that type of character. 3 years later, when they were about 21, they got arrested. And it was a shock. And they went to jail. And I went to jail for 9 years, which gives you an insight to the severity of what we did, and I won't go into that detail. But we were shell-shocked. When I came out of jail, they've just struggled for the rest of their lives. They've stole from family, they've stole from my parents, grandparents, and they've just lived a life of addiction. And it's heartbreaking, absolutely heartbreaking, that these boys that I looked up to, that were my absolute idols when I was a kid, suddenly ended up with this type of life. And in 2016, March, when it was my mum and dad's anniversary, we started talking about Philip and Jason, because it's the heartbreak of a family. And we were talking about what happened to them, because we had such similar childhoods. I lived in Redcar, they lived in Middlesbrough, we had similar childhoods, and the only thing that we could identify that was completely different in our childhoods was my mum and dad were rigorous about education. That you've got to do your homework, son, you've got to work hard, son, you've got to be a good leader, you've got to be a communicator, you've got to resolve conflicts and work with people. And Philip and Jason had an absolute absence of that. There was no drive from their close family to drive them in their education. And that was the single different piece of experience that we had. I had rigour and drive from parents who completely convinced me that education was important, and they completely didn't. And from the moment they were 11 into secondary school, it's almost as if our paths went a different way. And at that moment I realised, wow, this is an important job of ours. Because it's the only job where every single minute of our day we get to impact other people. And that thought process for us sparked, well, how do we help kids live remarkable lives? And how do we help them live remarkable lives in this period of time now, which is as challenging for pupils as we've ever had, certainly in my time in education. And the challenge for us was to say, if we're going to help our kids live remarkable lives, then we absolutely need to know with crystal clear clarity what the challenges are. What are the challenges our kids face right now? The plan their own strategy. It's unclear what's needed. And this model, when we tie it together, looks like this, where we begin with a teacher input and the kids can work through different types of questions in order to understand that one objective in depth. So those are the 4 threads for us to live a remarkable life. Absolute clarity about what the challenges are. To live by a really powerful skills framework that gets to the core of what it is to be human. And then 4 threads of strategy that can help us deliver it. And I'm just going to finish, I'm 3 minutes over, so apologies for that, but I'm just going to finish with, this is my nephew Jack and my little niece Emily. And they were the first kind of niece and nephews in the family, and I haven't got kids at the moment, so these kind of are my absolute world. When Jack was 4, he was in the back right seat in the car, and my brother was driving. And I said to Jack, Jack, is a broken down car parked? This is one of Ian Gilbert's thunks. Jack, is a broken down car parked? And he said, ask Daddy. So Jack, I thought, was delegating, but he was actually thinking. So I said to Neil, his dad, Neil, is a broken down car parked? And Neil said within a second, I don't know. I said, come on Neil, is a broken down car parked? And Neil then said, yeah, it's parked. I said, why, Neil? He said, because it's not moving. And then he just carried on focusing on driving. Terrible answer, no thought whatsoever. I turned to Jack, 4. Jack, is a broken down car parked? And Jack looked up and he said, only if it breaks down between 2 lines. Oh, what a brilliant answer. There's something that happens between Jack's age and Neil's age. Something that stops and stifles that thinking. And in my personal opinion, I think it's a rigid curriculum. It's the English education system. That we don't give these kids enough creativity, enough freedom, enough space to absolutely thrive, to be utterly remarkable. And I'll finish with this. Ken Blanchard tells a story of a little girl drawing a picture. And he goes up to her and he says, what are you drawing? And she says, oh, I'm drawing a picture of God. And Ken Blanchard says, but nobody knows what good looks like. And she looks up and she goes, they will in a minute. Carries on drawing. So guys, thank you for listening to me. Sorry for going 5 minutes over. If you need any